Chapter 1. First Step into the Mysterious Drama. Part 1. Desert Island. One hot summer morning, Arlena Davies, a talented female detective, finds herself on Epsilon Island, a luxury resort known for its lavish villas and breathtaking ocean views. But behind the island's peaceful appearance lies a deadly secret. Elena accepted the invitation to join the vacation on this island, but the reason she came here was not just to relax. Over the years, she has been involved in cases involving underground networks and unexpected events that people never imagined. This time, a long-standing vague case, which she could not refuse, pulled her here. Stepping off the yacht, Elena could feel the gentle sea breeze and the smell of salt on her face. Epsilon Island was an ideal place to hide from the outside world, and that was why many of the rich and elite sought it out. Elena knew that murders were not uncommon among those with money and power. As soon as she stepped onto the sand, her eyes fell on Arlena Marshall, an attractive woman. With a bright smile and a mysterious gaze, she had been the center of attention for the past few days. But Elena couldn't take her eyes off the worry in Arlena's eyes, even though she always smiled brightly, as if life had nothing to worry about. Elena quickly realizes that, despite the seemingly peaceful exterior, there are invisible strings of tension that connect everyone on the island. Hercule Poirot, the famous detective, is also here. And it is not difficult to see that he is not just on vacation. "Miss Davies," said Poirot, smiling delicately, "this island is truly a place of peace. Is it not?" Elena nodded, sensing the strangeness in the air. "Peaceful. But I feel something is wrong," she replied, her eyes searching. Part 2. Silent Fear. The first night on the island, everything seemed peaceful, but the feeling of tension kept increasing. Elena sat in her room when footsteps from outside began to sound. She stood up, walked to the window, and saw Arlena Marshall standing alone on the beach, her eyes looking far away, as if waiting for something. Not long after, Elena heard a sudden scream, pulling her back to reality. She hurriedly opened the door and ran outside. Arlena was gone. She was no longer on the beach, but strange traces in the sand remained. A horrifying truth flashed through Elena's mind. Was the death really an accident? Or was this just the beginning of a long-planned assassination? Part 3. Red Traces. The next morning, news of Arlena Marshall's death spread across the island. She was found dead in a sea rock cavity, her neck strangled beyond repair. Everyone was shocked. But there was one strange thing. No one could figure out who did it. They were all wearing perfect masks, and each seemed to have their own reasons for hiding the truth. Elena decided not to let this case go unnoticed. Poirot was the first person she went to. "Poirot," she began, "what do you think of this case? Is it a coincidence, or is someone trying to lure everyone into a bloody game?" Poirot looked at her, his eyes solemn. "Everyone here has their own connections, and what I see is a network slowly unfolding. You know, everyone on this island has shadows that cannot be erased." Elena couldn't believe what she was hearing. The shadows of the past didn't come from just one person, but from a complex web of secrets they had to keep. Part 4. Open the door to find the truth. As the mystery unfolds, Elena and Poirot begin to extract vital information from witnesses. Those present at the party the night before Arlena died all reveal surprising connections to underground organizations. They all have motives, but lack the evidence to prove them, while everyone in the mansion lives in fear and suspicion. Elena understands that this is not just an ordinary murder case. She begins to build connections, seeing gaps in the witnesses' stories. As Poirot conducts a crime scene reconstruction, a terrifying secret is revealed. Arlena's death was not an accident, but the result of a perfect conspiracy. Part 5. Facing the Villain. As all the pieces of the case fall into place, Elena discovers that the culprit is not a single person, but part of a larger plan. Arlena's death is the key that opens the door to a global criminal network she could not have imagined. But when the truth is finally revealed, Elena realizes that not everyone can be held accountable for their actions. Poirot helps her see that sometimes revenge and justice do not always mean punishment. And in the shadows of the past, there are secrets that we never want to know, but must face if we are to move forward. In Chapter 2. Facing the Darkness. Part 1. The Remaining Secrets. The next day, as the sunlight shone through the windows of the mansion, a feeling of being immersed in a misty haze enveloped the entire place. Everything seemed to have remained unchanged, but Elena could not shake off the confusion in her heart. The Arlena Marshall case. Although there were many clues, important pieces were still missing. Her death was not simply a coincidence or an argument that led to death. There was something deeper hidden in the darkness of Epsilon Island. Elena decides she can't give up. She begins to meet every person who was on the island the night before Arlena was murdered. The testimonies from the witnesses are still strangely inconsistent. Someone is hiding the truth, but it can't escape Elena's sharp gaze. What made her especially worried was the strange silence from Rosamond Darnley, a woman of few words and always mysterious. Elena could feel the strangeness in Rosamond's actions, as if she was trying to hide something. Although Rosamond did not speak, her face showed a clear fear. Part 2. Questions Below the Surface. During her next meeting with Lena Perez, Elena couldn't hide her unease. Lena was her close friend and one of the few people who could help her in difficult situations. "Lena, I feel like something's not right with this case," Elena said, her eyes sparkling with suspicion. "What do you think of everyone on the island?" Lena asked. "They all have strange connections to each other, and it seems like every move they make is carefully calculated." Elena nodded. "Yes, and I can't shake the feeling that this right is more than just a simple death. There's something hiding a bigger secret." Together, the two continued to examine the traces on the island. The traces on the beach where Arlena was found did not match what the witnesses described. It seemed that someone had moved Arlena's body after she died in order to create a fake scene. Part 3. Haunted by the Past. As the investigation deepens, Elena begins to sense that this case is connected to an inescapable story from the past, although no one dares to speak out. The shadow of an underground organization still haunts every person on the island. The feeling of fear grows when Elena realizes that one of the characters she is investigating may be involved in transnational crimes. Poirot, who had been watching the proceedings from a distance, now stepped closer to Elena. "Miss Davies, I think this may not be a simple murder," said Poirot. his eyes always alert and sharp. There are hidden links which we cannot ignore. This case may be part of a larger network which we have not yet seen. Elena couldn't help but admit that Poirot always had a near-perfect approach to the case. She felt that. Although she was on the right track, there would be many questions that couldn't be solved immediately. The people behind this case might not just stop at Arlena Marshall, but could be part of a larger plan. Part 4. Insights and Pieces. Elena and Poirot continue to gather information from each character in the story. Relationships begin to piece together. But one thing in particular makes her suspicious. The overall picture of the case becomes increasingly vague. It seems that everyone on the island has their own reasons for participating in this dangerous game. And finding the real killer is not as easy as she thought. When Elena once again approached Rosamond, she remained silent. But something strange happened when Elena realized that Rosamond was hiding a small piece of paper in her hand. Elena tactfully approached her and asked, "Rosamond, what do you know about Arlena? About what happened last night?" Rosamond's eyes flashed with panic, and then she replied, "There are things that I cannot say. But I do know one thing. If she does not die, we are all in danger." These words completely shocked Elena. What had frightened Rosamond so much? And did she know more than she was letting on? Part 5. Open Ending, Unfinished Ending. After weeks of intense investigation, the killer is finally found. But the outcome is not what Elena imagined. All the clues seem to point to someone close to Arlena, but the real cause is not personal hatred. It involves a larger power play, possibly stretching back years that were thought to be over. It didn't end overnight. But Elena found out the truth in the end. Not through the murder cases, but through her struggle with her own past. The pieces of the case were perfectly put together, but there were still unanswered questions. She couldn't ignore the remaining traces in her life, but at least she was ready to face the ghosts of the past. Chapter 3. Light from Darkness. Part 1. First Step into Darkness. As all the clues of the case gradually come to light, Elena realizes that she is not just facing a killer, but a much larger force that she cannot easily defeat. One quiet night, with the light still on in her office, Elena looks out the window at the darkness that covers the island of Epsilon. A feeling of anxiety rises within her. What she thought was a simple case turns out to be part of a global criminal network that she cannot fully comprehend. Rosamond Darnley, who had always been silent and evasive, finally opened up in private conversation with Elena. "Not everything is as it seems." "Elena," Rosamond whispered. Her eyes filled with a fear that no words could describe. Arlena's death was only part of a larger plan. What she knows could have put us all in danger. However, Rosamond could not or did not want to continue explaining. The secret still lies there, in the untold memories and the traces that people try to erase. Part 2. The New Hunt. Elena couldn't leave things as they were. She knew that the truth was still lurking somewhere. And if she wanted to understand more about the dark connections between Arlena, Rosamond, and the others, she would have to face a new battle. She decided that she couldn't stand by while other lives were still at stake. With the help of Poirot, who keeps a close eye on everything that happens, Elena begins to hunt for clues and discovers hidden forces she never imagined. Surreptitious trips to abandoned areas, suspicious encounters with seemingly unrelated characters help her uncover the darkness of hidden criminal organizations. One morning, after gathering enough information, Elena found a small piece of paper in an old document, which contained an unfamiliar name: Julian Crane, a man with deep ties to the Ashford family. But none of them knew that he was the leader of an underground organization that was manipulating events on the island. Part 3. Facing the underground organization. As Elena and Poirot begin to investigate Julian Crane, they discover that he is not only a dangerous criminal, but also has connections to many international organizations and groups of highly influential people. He not only possesses power, but also manipulates other powerful people to achieve his own goals. Poirot proposes a daring plan. They will build a cover and infiltrate Julian Crane's network, with the aim of overthrowing the organization from within. Elena cannot refuse. It is a risky proposition, but if they do not do so, the islanders and possibly the world will unwittingly become pawns in a power game they are unaware of. Part 4. The Dark Road. With their plan in place, Elena and Poirot venture into a criminal network they never thought they would enter. They must forge relationships with people who were once in Julian Crane's circle of power. But as they get closer to their target, traps are set, and every step they take could lead to danger. During a face-to-face meeting with Julian Crane, Elena couldn't help but sense the threat in his every word. "You may think you're playing this game smart," Crane said, his eyes full of contempt. "But never forget, in this game, there is one person who controls everything." Elena couldn't help but feel guilty, but she couldn't stop. Everything she did wasn't just for justice, but for the protection of innocent people, so that they could continue to live without being controlled by dark powers. Part 5. The Price of Truth. Finally, on a rainy night, Elena and Poirot put the final step of their plan into action. They expose Julian Crane and his organization, bringing to light the secrets he has kept hidden for so long. But as the truth comes to light, Elena realizes that the truth may come at a high price. When Julian Crane is arrested, all the participants in the underground criminal network are brought to light, but some of them are people Elena once trusted. She feels pain when she realizes that seemingly close relationships can turn into backstabbing. Elena realizes that, even though the case has been solved, revenge is not the only thing she needs to seek. Sometimes, forgiveness and acceptance are what truly help her move forward and find peace of mind. Chapter 4. The Questions That Never End. Part 1. A new chapter begins. After exposing Julian Crane's organization, Elena finds herself unable to completely escape the aftermath of the case. Despite her great victory, there are still many dark areas in her mind that she has yet to resolve. Old relationships, unhealed wounds, and unanswered questions continue to haunt her. Elena decided to return to the charity work and mental health project she had started. The people she had helped in the past, the victims of underground organizations and crime, were still the motivation for her to continue on her path. But just when she felt like she was starting to find peace, something unexpected happened. A secret letter with no sign of the sender. Simply a single line of text. They haven't left yet. It's all still going on. Elena read the words again and felt a cold feeling rise in her heart. How could Julian Crane's organization still exist when he was captured? Were there still shadowy people controlling everything from behind the scenes? Part 2. The story of the Remainers. Elena decides not to leave this story unfinished. She cannot ignore the remaining traces of those she once thought were dealt with. She turns to Lena Perez, her longtime friend, who she knows can always support her in difficult situations. Lena, I got a strange message, Elena said, as the two sat across from each other in the organization's office. Someone said that part of the organization is still alive, and I feel like I'm walking back into the ghosts of the past. Lena looked at Elena with a doubtful gaze. What do you think? Could it be a mistake? Or does someone want you back for some unknown purpose? Elena couldn't ignore this warning. The feeling that something was left unsaid made her unable to stop. This time, she decided to not only find the truth, but also find the people related to the underground organizations she had fought against. Part 3. Relationships that are traded off. While pursuing the clues, Elena finds that several old figures begin to rise back into her life. People with dark pasts, who were once forgiven or overlooked, but now become parts of a larger picture that she must uncover. She met Rosamond Darnley, the woman who never revealed the truth about the previous events. She always kept silent when it came to Julian Crane's organization. But Elena knew she was hiding something. Rosamond, I can't leave this life without finding the truth. You still know something, don't you? Rosamond bowed her head, but said nothing. Her silence made Elena more suspicious than ever. They will never let it go. You don't know who they are. Elena, Rosamond said finally, if you continue, you will find yourself in a much bigger war. Part 4. New Paths Discovered. Rosamond's words still echoed in Elena's mind. The small paths she had walked on now seemed to lead to another map, one she could not fully understand. Clues that led to an organization that had not only local influence, but an international network that could be involved in economic and political wars, and possibly an underground force that no one could have suspected. Elena began to approach international intelligence agencies to gather information. She met some people in the national security industry and began to connect with the international networks that Julian Crane had been involved in. But as she continued her research, she found that the lack of transparency at the top of these organizations was something she had to face. Part 5. The Final Confrontation. In an unexpected encounter, Elena realizes that the truth she is seeking involves not only a criminal organization, but also a network of power that has infiltrated government agencies and international organizations. This is not a simple confrontation with a villain, but a battle with the ghosts of power. What worries Elena is that when all the secrets are exposed, not everyone will be held responsible. She has found the truth, but revenge and punishment do not always bring justice, and sometimes it is a never-ending struggle. Chapter 5. Stepping Out of the Darkness, Part 1. The Truth Revealed. It all started out looking like it was coming to an end. Elena had solved most of the truth and brought justice to the unknown victims. However, as she progressed, she realized that something was still not quite clear. The connections were not enough, and the real ending always seemed to open up another path she had never thought of. Elena stood alone in the dark room, the only light from a small table lamp illuminating a pile of documents. She held in her hands the final evidence, which she knew would expose all secrets. But a strange feeling rose in her heart. Was she really ready to face all the truth? The secret she uncovers seemed to involve an ancient organization with the power to change the history of great nations. But exposing those secrets could plunge her into a global war she never imagined. Part 2. An unplanned encounter. Elena decides to bring everything to light, even if it means changing her life forever. She goes to a small cafe in town, where she last saw Rosamond Darnley. The two exchange the last evidence Elena has collected, when suddenly a strange man appears. He was dressed in black, looking mysterious and dangerous. Elena couldn't ignore his cold gaze. The man walked closer to her, and Rosamond glanced at Elena with a panicked look. "I knew you would come," the man said, his voice hoarse but powerful. "But there is one thing you need to know. Elena, the price of knowing the truth will be unfathomable." Elena stood still, a little surprised but ready to face it. "I'm prepared. I won't come back." Part 3. A chase. The man was no stranger. He was Victor, one of the underground leaders Elena had heard about in previous investigations. Victor represented a network of ultimate power, and what he knew could reverse everything Elena had achieved in her quest for the truth. Elena knows that she cannot stand still in this game. When Victor walks away, she decides to follow him. A dangerous chase begins. Poirot has warned her in advance, but Elena still cannot back down. She knows that the truth cannot be suppressed forever. Along with some close associates, Elena enters an abandoned area where she notices signs of underground activity. This is not just a confrontation with hidden people, but a fight to protect everything she believes in. Part 4. The price of truth. As Elena and her team get closer to the heart of the criminal network, a sense of extreme danger begins to weigh on her. Everything seems to unfold too soon. She has no control over what comes next. Ghosts from the past suddenly struggle to return, and old enemies she thought were destroyed lurk in the shadows, ready to return at any moment. In the center of the abandoned area, Elena faced Victor once again, but this time, he no longer spoke threatening words. He just looked at her with cold eyes, as if he already knew everything that would happen. "You came close to the truth, but perhaps you do not understand its consequences," Victor said, his eyes never leaving Elena. "The price of truth is not everyone can pay." Elena stood straight, unafraid. "I am prepared. I will not back down." Part 5. The end or a new beginning. Even though Victor was arrested and the criminal organizations were exposed, Elena knew that this story did not end here. After the truth was revealed, Elena realized that she had unraveled part of the deep plans that the authorities were plotting, but there was still much left unresolved. The confrontation with Victor is not simply the end of a case, but a turning point in Elena's quest for justice that she cannot give up. She has gone through many challenges, but every time she thinks she has reached her destination, another path opens up, where she must continue to fight the darkness within herself. Elena realizes that not every question has an answer. But more importantly, Justice is not always about revenge, but sometimes about accepting and moving on without looking back. As the last light of the setting sun hit Elena's face, she smiled softly, ready to move on, no longer burdened with unanswered questions. Chapter 6, Light in the Darkness, Part 1. A New Future. With the secrets revealed and the confrontation with Victor over, Elena feels like she has come a long way. But even though her struggles have subsided, she realizes that a part of her is still not completely at peace. Questions about her past, unhealed wounds, still haunt her. However, Elena could no longer let herself be held back by the past. She realized that in order to truly move forward, she needed to accept change and open herself to new opportunities. The mental health project she was leading continued to thrive, and she decided to spend more time focusing on those in need. Every day, Elena feels herself getting closer to the peace she has always been searching for. Her work and the people around her have helped her understand that peace is not the absence of challenges, but the ability to accept and face everything in life. Part 2. New Connections. One morning, when Elena walked into her office, she found a letter with no sender. The message on the paper was simply, "Keep the faith. Elena, there is much more to do." These words resonated with Elena like an irresistible call. She realized that, while she may have found peace in her work and personal life, her journey was never over. There were more important things she had yet to discover, and stories still waiting to be told. This strange and unignorable feeling makes Elena decide to continue her search for the truth. This time, not for a case, but for the connection she feels from within. She needs to find the connection between all the struggles she has faced. Part 3. The Price of Power. Meanwhile, Elena's best friend Sarah came to find her. Sarah had always been there for her in the most difficult times, and this time was no exception. "Elena, I understand you're looking for something bigger," Sarah said, her eyes showing concern but also pride. "But are you ready to face things you may not know?" Elena looked into Sarah's eyes and replied, "I haven't always been able to follow my heart, but I feel like there's a part of the truth that's still unresolved. It's not a story about evil, but about power and the choices I've been faced with." Sarah nodded, as if understanding that Elena was at a major turning point. "Be careful, Elena. This time, you may not only face criminals, but also forces that can change fate." Part 4. Lingering questions. Even though Elena has achieved a lot of success in unraveling the dark truths, she still cannot stop thinking about the unanswered questions. She decides to continue searching for clues, not only about the crimes she has exposed, but also about herself. She returned to the charity work she had been helping with before. In conversations with volunteers and those she supported, Elena realized that true peace does not come from completely escaping the darkness, but from accepting it, learning to live with it, and turning it into strength. One evening, as she sat with her loved ones, Sarah, and some volunteers from the project, Elena felt like she had found peace. Even though the case was over, her journey continued. "Thank you for always being there for me and understanding me," Elena said, giving a small smile. Life isn't just about seeking justice for others. It's also about dealing with yourself, learning to forgive, and finding peace, no matter how difficult life gets. Part 5. Another chapter is written. In the end, Elena understands that not everything can be perfect, and that life's struggles will never end. But in maturity and acceptance, she finds the freedom she has always longed for. Day by day, Elena continues to walk her path, not just as a detective, but as a changemaker. Although she has defeated many evils in the past, each new day opens up opportunities for her to continue to improve herself and help the community. Ultimately, Elena realizes that peace comes not from solving every problem, but from accepting and being able to live fully in the present, despite the challenges she faces. Chapter 7. Forgotten Trails Part 1. Discovering the Remaining Mysteries. Although Elena has found peace in her work and personal life, she cannot deny that unfinished questions still haunt her. Despite solving many cases throughout her journey, there is still a part of her life that she feels she has not been able to touch: her own past, the wounds from the past, the events that have not been fully explained, the nameless ghosts. All have a strange connection that Elena has not been able to fully explain. Elena began to look for old traces, unexamined documents from cases she had participated in. In the documents, she found a name that she had never noticed before: Julian Crane. He was not only a person with connections to underground organizations, but also had a name associated with old cases, strange disappearances that she had never thought of. A feeling of unease rose in Elena's heart once again. Crane was not a simple criminal, but part of a vast network, an organization that had existed silently for many years. Part 2. The Return of the Shadow Man. As Elena continues her investigation, she begins to encounter old faces from her past. One of them is Isabella Ashford, a woman who was involved in the Julian Crane case she worked on. Isabella is not the innocent witness she thought she was. In fact, she is an important piece in a larger scheme that Elena cannot fully understand. As Isabella suddenly appeared before Elena one autumn morning. Elena, I know you are searching for the truth, but perhaps the truth will never give you the answer you expect, Isabella said, while her eyes were filled with worry. Elena felt overwhelmed with confusion. Why do you say that? She asked, her voice filled with doubt. Isabella looked at her for a long moment, then continued. Everything you have investigated is just the tip of a larger conspiracy that you cannot imagine. Julian Crane is not just a murderer. He is part of a system that you cannot simply break. Isabella's words shocked Elena. She couldn't imagine how big this network was and who else was behind these events. Everything she had done so far seemed to be just a preparation for a bigger battle. Part 3. Approaching a Dangerous Person. Elena sets out on a journey to find out more about Julian Crane and his connections. Although she knows that the deeper she digs, the more danger she will encounter. Freedom will only come when she truly faces the truth. During a secret meeting with Sarah, her best friend, Elena receives important information. Elena, I just received a call from the International Archive. They say that Crane is not only involved with criminal organizations, but he also has close connections with powerful figures in the government. This information was like a time bomb in Elena's heart. It turned out that the power network that she had thought was just petty crime was influencing political and economic decisions in many countries. This time, her investigation is no longer simply about finding the culprit, but about fighting a system of power that she cannot yet fully understand. What Arlena must do is not only lift the curtain, but also shed light on a secret war that is taking place in the shadows. Part 4. The Price of Power. Every step Arlena takes brings her closer to the terrible truth. The people she is facing are not just ordinary criminals, but people with power and authority that cannot be easily erased. This leaves Arlena facing a difficult decision. Is she willing to continue to uncover everything to bring the truth, even though it may send her into a spiral from which she cannot escape? Late one night, as Arlena and Poirot exchanged their final information, Poirot said, "We are dealing with a larger vortex. Arlena, this is not a fight with mere criminals, but with forces that have existed in the shadows for so many years." Arlena looked up at Poirot. "If I go on, will I be able to control things?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "You cannot control everything, but you can control yourself. And that is the most important thing," replied Poirot. Arlena nodded. She understood that she would face a very difficult battle. But if she did not continue, then no one else would be able to face this darkness. Part 5. Final Decision. Arlena decides to face the remaining truths. She is prepared for the inevitable consequences. With the help of Poirot and Sarah, she plans to destroy the organization that Crane has built over the years. But this battle is not just a victory for justice, but the final test of Arlena's life. Will she have the strength to face the remaining darkness in this world? And will justice come to those who truly deserve it? Or is it just part of an endless game of power? The answer will be written on the final pages of Arlena's journey. And the fight, perhaps, will never end. Chapter 8. Open Ending Part 1. Assertiveness from within. Although Arlena has unraveled many dark secrets and exposed the villain she has faced, she realizes that the truth cannot always completely resolve all problems. Questions about power, secret organizations, and hidden people still haunt her, as if there is no real ending. The feeling that she could continue investigating forever seemed like an irresistible invitation to her. But it was at this moment that Arlena understood that peace of mind was the ultimate goal. The battles in her life were not just about fighting criminals, but about discovering herself and understanding that sometimes the truth did not bring the peace she thought it would. Arlena began to spend more time with her loved ones. Sarah, her best friend, had always been the only one who could help her maintain a balance between work and personal life. Together, they participated in charity activities, helping the community and vulnerable children in society. Arlena understood that, although the past always haunts her, the future can still be built with the right steps. Part 2. Life is unpredictable. Day by day, Arlena realized that life has no clear map and everything can change unexpectedly. One evening, as she sat in her office, looking out the window, she noticed that she no longer felt tired or depressed as before. Every day is an opportunity to learn, and what matters is not the end of the journey, but how we live during that journey. Another strange letter arrived early one morning, but this time there were no threats, just a different message. It contained only 3 words: forgive yourself. Elena knew that this message was more than just advice. It was a major turning point in her life, a reminder that even though she had solved every case and found the truth, she still had to make peace with herself. Sometimes, forgiveness is the hardest thing to do, but it is also the most important. Part 3: A New Journey. After months of solving cases, Elena decided not to return to her investigative work. She had seen enough to realize that justice cannot be measured by those who are punished, but by self-discovery. She was strong enough to forgive and move on, leaving behind the burdens of the past. She began to participate in projects to help the poor, support abandoned children, and become an advocate for social change. She realized that, although crime investigations can never be finished, small steps every day bring about big changes. Elena found herself making deep connections with people in her community and feeling happy when she saw their lives improve, even if just a little. This new career helped her find a greater purpose in life. Part 4: Melodies of Forgiveness. One day, while attending a charity meeting, Elena meets Lena Perez, an old friend she met during her early days of investigating cases. Lena is now not just a friend, but a teammate in community campaigns. They work together, guiding families and helping children in difficult circumstances. So, you did a wonderful job, Elena, Lena said with a big smile. Not only the revenge you sought in justice, but also the healing within yourself and within this community. Elena said nothing, just smiled. She knew that this life was not only about the battles and the cases she solved, but about the connections she built and the people she helped. This journey was not about simple justice, but about forgiveness and believing in change. Part 5: Peace of Mind. Looking back on her life, Elena feels that every step she took has led to maturity. She has faced the darkness of her past, but has also accepted and forgiven herself. The seemingly endless cases have now opened a new door for Elena, where she can live fully as herself. Elena knows that life doesn't always have complete answers, but every day is an opportunity to keep going, to find meaning in simple moments and feel the healing of loving connections. Chapter 9: The Traces That Remain. Part 1: The Price of Peace. Time passed, and though Elena had found peace, the old traces still haunted her, like ghosts that never completely disappeared. The web of power she had broken seemed to have been erased, but deep down, she knew that not everything was gone. One early morning, sitting on the small balcony of her newly rented apartment in a peaceful city, Elena felt an anxiety she could not quell. The gaps in her life, the things that were not completely resolved, were still there, and it seemed that something was still hidden. She couldn't deny that. Even though she had parted ways with the past, the darkness of old investigations still existed in a part of her soul. Sometimes, unresolved things became indelible traces, an incomplete map that she couldn't stop pursuing. Part 2: Meeting Someone New. One afternoon, when Elena was sitting in a cafe near the beach, a strange man walked in. He had a mysterious appearance, a cold face but very sharp eyes. Amashomai, Elena couldn't help but notice that this person had something special, like a ghost from the past that she couldn't explain. He sat down at a table near Elena, and after a moment of silence, he opened his mouth. "You're Elena Davies, right? I know you've solved many cases, but I believe there's something you haven't been able to figure out." Elena looked at this man, not knowing if he was an unknown person or a dangerous person from the networks she had faced before. "Who are you?" Elena asked, her voice not hiding the wariness. Wow. The man smiled slightly. "I am the one who knows things you don't know, and I think it's time for us to move forward. Together." Part 3. Solve it yourself or move forward together. Elena felt that her life was once again in turmoil. This man, with his vague and unclear words, seemed to be calling her back to the unsolved secrets. But Elena could not simply return to the old cases without knowing for sure if there was really anything left to discover. After many days of thinking, Elena decided to join the journey that this man proposed, although she was not sure about the goal. The feeling of not being able to escape from the unanswered questions made her unable to refuse. "We can't move forward without solving the unexplained," she told herself. And with that, she began a new investigation. One not just of crime, but of the web of power itself, of the shadows behind the world she thought she understood. Part 4. Discovering an ancient organization. This investigation is not simply a murder case. It involves an ancient organization, a group of influential people from lost civilizations, underground forces that have been protected in the dark for centuries. The connections that Elena discovers make her even more confused and scared, because things are not as simple as she thought. She begins to learn about a group called the Guardians, a mysterious, secret organization in history. These people seem to have manipulated many events in history that Elena never knew about. Julian Crane, although captured, is actually just a small part of a larger plan. Sarah, her companion, was the only person Elena could trust throughout this investigation. "Elena, we may not be dealing with a simple criminal network anymore," Sarah said, her face solemn. "What we are uncovering may be a long-standing underground war, and we are just small pawns in this game." Elena felt tired, but she also knew that the truth had to be told. She couldn't stop when she had gone too far. Part 5. Important choices. With each passing day, Elena realizes that she is entering a dark path of no return. She has overcome too many challenges, but this time, what she faces is not a single case, but a much larger system of power, long existing in the shadows. This confrontation may not be just a fight with crime, but a fight with forces that she cannot simply decide. Elena is faced with two choices: continue to confront those behind the organization, or accept living in the dark. Accepting that not every question has an answer, and that sometimes moving on is the only way to find peace. In her final moments, Elena learns that justice is not always achieved through punishment, but sometimes through understanding and forgiveness. She decides not to continue hunting down evil, but to reconcile with herself and help those in need find freedom. Chapter 10. To the End of Darkness. Part 1. Steps of No Return. As Elena faces her final decisions, She realizes that darkness will always exist in her life, no matter how many challenges she overcomes. From the hidden networks of power she uncovers to the long hidden secrets, Arlena learns that life is not only a series of battles with evil, but also a battle with herself. So she decided not to continue her investigation too deeply into the hidden forces that had drawn her into this dangerous world. Instead, she wanted to find peace in reconciling with the past, accepting the truth, and walking in harmony with herself. From working on community projects to participating in a mental health program, Arlena gradually found satisfaction and joy in simple yet meaningful tasks. She began to connect with people she could help, not only physically, but also mentally. Part 2. Questions that remain. Despite having cleared up many events, Arlena cannot deny that there are still unanswered questions. There are relationships she cannot explain. There are traces she cannot connect. Meetings with Rosamond Darnley, Lena Perez, and other witnesses have helped her clarify many things. But the darkness of underground organizations may still exist silently in some corner of the world. One afternoon, when Arlena was sitting in her office, she received an invitation from an international organization that she did not know about. They wanted to recruit her for a mission to protect justice on a global scale. Arlena, who was no longer a professional detective, felt a newness in this offer. She realized that life would always have surprises that she could not foresee. Part 3. The New Road. With this adjustment in mind, Arlena decided not to go back to the past. Although she was not sure about the next path, she felt that it was time for her to move forward. Believing in change and hoping for new relationships made her stronger in life. With Lena by her side, Arlena begins a new chapter in her life, not in the dark world, but in a brighter future, where she can build a real life, not from investigating crimes, but from caring and sharing love with those in need. Part 4. Inner Journey. The journeys of self-discovery, the moments shared with the community, and the projects she and Sarah participated in helped her gradually integrate into her new life. But change is not always easy. Arlena realized that forgiveness and acceptance do not come quickly. She used to think she had escaped the past, but in fact, the past has always been a part of the journey to find herself. Even though she has closed a chapter in her life, Arlena understands that this journey has no end. She is not only a bringer of justice, but she has now become a bringer of hope to those who need healing, understanding, and love. Part 5. New Paths Open. One morning, as Arlena sat in a charity meeting, Sarah smiled and said, "I always knew that one day you would come back, but in a different way. You will no longer be just a case solver, but someone who helps revive the lives of others." Arlena couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in her heart. She had reconciled with herself, and now she had found a new path that wasn't just about justice, but about love, forgiveness, and small actions that mattered. She decided that every day would be an opportunity to learn and continue to live with faith in change. The relationships she built from sincerity, the lives she touched from sharing and loving, would be the reason she kept going. Chapter 11. Resurrection from the Old Death, Part 1. Facing reality. Even though Arlena's life has gradually stabilized, She cannot deny that traces of the past still follow her. Every time she looks back, she realizes that the peace she has found is not the result of an easy life, but a long journey to face the ghosts that she has not been able to completely shake off. Unsolved cases, old actions, and unexplained relationships still scar her, preventing her from completely escaping. But it is these things that make her stronger, making her understand that justice doesn't always come with perfection, but sometimes it's about accepting imperfection and moving forwards. However, there is one thing that Elena cannot ignore: the unanswered questions about the underground organization she has encountered. Even though she has brought the evil people to light, she still cannot ignore the ambiguity about the forces behind them. Part 2. Another road one day. While Elena was taking a quiet afternoon break at a small cafe, she received an unexpected call. Sarah, her longtime companion, informed her that one of the key figures in the Julian Crane case had suddenly disappeared without a trace. "Why do you doubt this person?" Elena asked, her eyes not leaving the phone screen. "He was one of the people with deep connections to the international organizations we were tracking. All traces of him disappeared for no apparent reason." "Elena," Sarah said into the phone, her voice filled with worry, "maybe he hasn't really been defeated yet." Elena listened, and as if a light had flashed in her mind, she realized that this struggle was not over. Questions that she thought had been resolved now opened up a new path. She was faced with those who had never left a trace, those who might have skillfully retreated into the shadows. Part 3. The Hidden One. Elena and Sarah began a new investigation into the man who disappeared. This time, it is not the cases she is familiar with, but a search in the dark. The two not only have to face the enemy outside, but also overcome their own fear and skepticism. What Elena has experienced is enough to change her, but she still feels that she cannot completely escape the potential danger. Each clue takes her and Sarah to forgotten places, corners they never imagined. They sneak into hidden areas where the web of power Julian Crane once controlled still exists in secret. During the investigation, Elena realized that these organizations did not simply operate in one area, but were widely dispersed, and all the previous events could have been just part of a long-term strategy. Part 4. The Path to Truth. The hunt doesn't just lead Elena to a single culprit, but also opens up a larger war between powerful underground organizations. They not only manipulate political decisions, but also orchestrate everything from behind the scenes. This forces Elena to face an important question. What can we do when the truth is too big and complicated to handle? As Elena and Sarah get closer to their goal, they discover that the next step will not only be about the truth, but also about the choices they must make. Can they continue to expose these shadows, or will they have to accept that the truth cannot always be completely resolved? Elena knows that this is a personal choice. She cannot save everyone, and she cannot defeat every force. But her journey is not about a never-ending war, but about understanding that peace can come from accepting and moving on, no matter what the world around her looks like. Part 5. To the End. Ultimately, Elena's quest for truth is not just about overthrowing evil, but about healing herself. She confronts not only the crimes, but also herself. The parts of her life she once thought unchangeable. Elena decides to leave her past fears behind and start a new chapter. She knows that, while she can't completely escape the darkness, clarity and a sense of security will only come when she accepts herself and moves forward, not with the aim of winning, but with the aim of living in peace. Chapter 12. The Paths Open. Part 1. New Roads and Important Choices. As Arlena looks back on everything she has been through, she realizes that not only the case, but also life can be solved through a continuous process of self-discovery. The investigations and challenges she faces along the way are not the big waves she has overcome, but the marks she has left in the lives of those around her. It is those marks that have created her identity. Arlena has decided not to return to the cases or the criminals of the past. However, there is one thing she cannot give up: the ability to help others. The charity work she has been involved in, the mental health projects for poor children, all help her feel that she has a clearer purpose in this life. She began to rebuild her personal life, not only from work, but also from the relationships she had built over the years. Sarah remained her loyal companion, always standing by her side in important decisions. And Poirot, her teacher and friend, although no longer appearing frequently in her life, the lessons he taught her were always precious in Arlena's heart. Part 2. Old and New Relationships. One late afternoon, as Arlena was cleaning up old files in her office, she suddenly received a call. On the other end of the line was Rosamond Darnley, the mysterious woman Arlena had met before during her investigation, although they rarely contacted each other. This time, Rosamond's voice was somewhat urgent. "Elena, I know you thought you had left everything behind, but I have important information to share," Rosamond said, her voice urgent. "What you have done for others is wonderful, but what you don't know could change everything." The change in Rosamond's tone made Arlena feel that something serious was going on. "Rosamond, what are you talking about? I'm no longer involved in the investigations," Arlena replied, but an inexplicable anxiety rose in her heart. "It's not what you think, but if you don't help, the worst will happen," Rosamond replied, then hung up without giving Arlena a chance to ask further questions. Part 3. The Past is Not Dead. Arlena decided not to let herself be dragged into the past again. However, the unsettling feeling about Rosamond's call could not be dispelled. The organization she had helped to expose before had not yet completely collapsed, and it seemed that darkness continued to exist from the deepest parts of society. Arlena went to Sarah to discuss her decision. "I know you want to let it all go, but I feel like these connections can't be erased so easily," Sarah said with seriousness. "If Rosamond called you for this reason, then perhaps we should continue investigating." Arlena couldn't deny that the evil could always return, and she couldn't ignore the next dangers. "I can't go back just because of a call, but I feel like something big is waiting." Part 4. Revealing the remaining secret. Arlena and Sarah decide to go back to the old clues. Unchecked files, unexplained meetings, all linked to a new organization, an extension of the old one Arlena had broken up. From their initial investigations, they discovered that not only Crane, but also other names in society were secretly behind the scenes controlling political and financial events. Their investigation turns up unbelievable findings. Traces of a shadowy organization once formed by old forces, with strong influence in international politics. Everything begins to get confusing, and Arlena feels like she is back in a never-ending battle. Part 5. Final Decision. After long days of searching, Elena is faced with an important decision. She will continue to fight, but not for a personal reason or for revenge, but for true justice. She will help expose the dark forces that reign in society. But this time, she will not be alone. She will not only have Sarah as a companion, but also Poirot, who always helps her see the light in the darkness. The price of truth may be loss, Elena said one evening as she and Poirot sat talking, but I understand that change will only come when we dare to face it, whether it is facing the ghosts of the past or this dark system of power. Poirot looked at her with an affirmative gaze. Elena, whatever the path ahead, remember, we cannot let the past dictate the future. Chapter 13. The Last Light, Part 1. The Never-Ending Fights. Although she has found some peace in her work and personal life, Elena realizes that the world is full of threats that she cannot completely avoid. Criminal organizations and powerful forces have always existed in the shadows, and justice is never an easy thing to achieve. After uncovering the dark secrets, Elena knows that her journey is not over yet. However, she also understands that she cannot face all challenges alone. The relationships she has built up so far have helped her realize that, no matter what, she cannot do it all alone. Sarah is the only friend left. Poirot doesn't appear often, but his words still guide her every decision. Elena feels lucky to have such companions. But there is one thing she realizes very clearly: the truth can be a powerful weapon, but it can also be a sharp blade. Part 2. Secrets Behind the Darkness. Once again, Elena finds herself back in the criminal network she set out to uncover. Julian Crane may have been caught, but the organization he represents is not something that can be easily eliminated. The more she investigates, the more lost Elena feels, as if she is walking in a maze with no way out. During her investigation, she discovers that the underground organizations not only influence politics, but are also secretly manipulating global financial markets, weapons, and even unknown Cold Wars. The system she is facing is not just a murder case, but a system of power that has existed for centuries. This left Elena feeling confused and bewildered. She could break a small part of the system, but to change the whole thing, it was probably an unwinnable battle. However, she couldn't stop when she had gone too far, especially when the truth was getting deeper and darker. Part 3. Relationships Tested. During her investigation, Sarah became not only a friend, but also an indispensable teammate. One day, as Elena and Sarah discussed their new findings, Elena began to realize that their relationship might be tested in ways she never thought possible. I'm ready for what's coming, Elena, but I feel like we're getting too close to secrets we can't solve, Sarah said, looking worried. That may be possible, Elena replied, her eyes never leaving the map and the data she was analyzing. But I feel a responsibility to get this done. The truth cannot remain hidden. Sarah looked at Elena for a long moment, then sighed. I will always be here, but I don't know if we can fight it all. Elena looked at her friend and felt a sense of uncertainty in her heart. She understood that the fight was not only with evil, but also with greater forces that she could not fully control. Part 4. The End of a Journey. Late one evening, As Elena and Sarah prepare for a final investigation, they receive urgent news. A cyber attack has leaked all the information of the underground criminal organization that Elena has been investigating. Important data about powerful people suddenly falls into the hands of the public. Elena realizes that they have not only uncovered the secret, but also shaken the system that the rulers have built for so long. However, as soon as the truth is revealed, she feels not victory but fear. Can she continue to live in a world where everything has changed? With undeniable evidence, Elena is faced with a huge choice: justice or protecting herself and those she loves. Part 5. Innovation. After all the battles and trials, Elena realizes that peace comes not only from uncovering the truth, but also from the ability to forgive and accept that some things can never be completely resolved. She decides not to dwell on the pain and not to let hatred control her. She continues her journey, not with the simple intention of winning, but with a belief in real change. Every day is an opportunity for her to continue being true to herself and creating a better world despite the darkness that still exists. Chapter 14. New Traces. Part 1. Moving on. A year has passed since Elena and her team uncovered the secrets of one of the most powerful underground organizations she has ever faced. Although she has found some peace in her life, the constant movement of the world around her makes her feel like there is something still waiting. Elena stood in a large room at the headquarters of the global community organization she had joined after her investigation. Looking out the window, where weak rays of sunlight were filtering through the thick clouds, she was no longer a lone detective, but part of a larger strategy, a system of influence. But would the decisions she made be enough to truly change this old system? She knows that justice doesn't always come easy, and not everyone gets what they deserve. But Elena feels that justice is a journey with no destination, but rather a series of small, continuous steps that she must take day by day. Part 2. Difficult Choices. One day, Elena receives information about a major cyber attack that has exposed thousands of sensitive data. The big names in the underground organization she has investigated are directly involved in this incident, but this time, it is not just those who have been arrested before. Powerful people in government and business are hiding in the shadows of the incident. This information startled her because the people controlling everything from behind the scenes might not be simple criminals. The names in this attack might be more powerful than any criminal organization she had faced. This time, it was not just criminals, but a system facing change. Elena feels like she's at a crossroads. She can choose to continue fighting the dark forces, or simply accept that she can't fight forever and find another way to live in peace. Part 3. The Road of No Escape. Elena decides to continue her investigation. She understands that, although she cannot overthrow an entire system, she cannot stop in her fight for justice. Because if she stops, the evil will continue to control and manipulate innocent people. Together with Sarah and some colleagues from the Global Community Foundation, Elena embarks on a comprehensive investigation into the cyber attack. Each clue gradually leads her into a wider network, involving political power and financial markets that no one could have expected. However, as she begins to approach large organizations, she discovers that this game is not simply about fighting evil. She is faced with a long-standing system of power, perhaps rooted in society for many generations. Part 4. The Price to Pay. As Elena gets closer to the center of this network, she begins to notice a change in herself. She is not only facing the evil people, but also the darkness in society itself. Injustices she never thought of before. Justice is not simply about exposing criminals, but facing deeply ingrained systems. Elena began to feel tired of the endless investigations. But one thing she realized was she couldn't stop. At dawn, the truth wasn't something that could be measured in a few days. The price of the truth was an arduous and risky journey. But if she gave up, it meant that justice could never prevail. Part 5. The Final Verdict. Dizziness and exhaustion gradually took over Elena. Every decision brought painful results and did not always bring the change she wanted. She began to feel confused, not only about her current choices, but also about her future direction. So, one late evening, as she sat by the window, looking out at the quiet night sky, Elena realized that, no matter how difficult things were, the final decision was still in her hands. She would not give up, but she would not cling to things that could not be changed. She would continue her journey, but she would not let the past control her. She learned to forgive, not only those who had wronged her, but also herself. And in that moment, Elena knew that this life would not have a perfect ending. However, peace of mind and faith in change would still be things she continued to pursue.